For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Did you know that India's middle class will double to 715 million by 2030-31 and then grow to a staggering 1 billion by 2047? Did you know the International Monetary Fund has picked India as the fastest growing major economy in the world? Hello and welcome to another edition of Capital Calculus. I am your host Anil Padmanabhan. It was Morgan Stanley, the global investment bank, that broke ranks and came out with a bold document calling this India's Decade. It opened the floodgates, following which countries, companies, individuals, institutions and even other investment banks started betting on India's potential. However, in the past, India has only flattered to deceive. But somehow everybody believes this time it's going to be different. Why is it that everybody is so positive on India's potential? To understand this and more, we spoke to Shamika Ravi. She's a scholar, economist and member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. I'll cut to the chase. Why is everybody betting on India's potential? Is it about India's impressive growth trends?
It's not the growth in itself, Anil, which I think is leading to this kind of a reaction. It is India's growth in the midst of a global slowdown. I think it is within that context you have to see why there is such degree of optimism towards India. And it is quite widespread. And it is not on account of India's growth by itself. We have grown at these levels for some time. But I really think it is the context within which we are growing, which is not conducive at all right now. You're seeing the global turmoil and the impending recession. The war doesn't show any sign of abating. The global, this whole reorientation countries want vis-a-vis China, etc. All of this is leading to a lot of uncertainty and churn overall. But India's growth remains steady, and I think it is on account of that. Plus, I think I would also like to believe, Anil, some of it is also on account of the fact that, there is no disruption here. There is, we have done all the right things, whether it was the reaction to the pandemic and how we went about it. We didn't fall into any of the rhetorics. We didn't cave into populist sentiment. I think by and large, the way we have managed our finances and kept gradually pushing the reform agenda in the right direction, that warrants a certain optimism.
Okay. So, but I'm sure they are also betting on the potential. We have that middle class report, Rajesh Shukla's study, which shows that we are already some 400 million, but the middle class will expand to 700 million by 2030 and a billion by 2047. So middle class means more consumption, more growth, etc., right?
Oh, absolutely. And you are seeing it in the numbers. If you look at like the National Family Health Service, that is, those are data sets that I look at, asset ownership and all, you are seeing the way across quintile groups, whether it is purchasing two-wheelers, whether it is refrigerators, televisions, just the way you are seeing rising sort of ownership across quintile groups. In fact, now you are seeing that earlier it used to be the first two. Now you are seeing, except for the bottom, and even there, mobile phone, etc., has exploded. You are seeing television now begin to grow in major ways. So overall, you're right. I think that growth in the middle class, and I would say even beyond middle class, the growth in the consumption pattern itself, on account of massive electrification, just better overall infrastructure means people will consume certain types of goods much more.
There's one big ideological shift that India has undertaken in the last few years. It now sees itself as part of the solution and not the problem at the global high table. In other words, It is willing to give and take. This shift in or pivot in India's negotiating stance is lending heft to India's global presence, especially given its sheer size.
So, Anil, I think largely what you are asking is that what has changed in the last, let's say, a decade, where India's position on a lot of these things now seems to be not clear. And I think, frankly, the more I look at the data, the more I look at schemes, the more I look at the way schemes are getting implemented, programs are getting operationalized, the way we reacted to the war in Europe. On a lot of these things, Anil, there is, I think, greater clarity of national interest. We see a lot more convergence across different arms of the economy, the private, the public, and within the public. If you consider within the government itself, there is a fair bit of convergence across ministries. I'm not saying we've ironed out. I mean, we are a very big country. We are a very complex, heterogeneous country. So we will have certain kinds of processes which do take time and so on. But on a lot of matters of national interest, I think because there is greater clarity from the top, you are seeing that it is getting reflected in the way the strategies are emerging. Ministry after ministry, whether we are talking about trade policies, whether we are thinking about telecom policy, whether we are thinking about now vis-a-vis climate and what our approach towards finance, climate finance, etc., it's going to be. There is a clarity, and I think it comes right from the top.
So if you connect what we just discussed and what you just said, so there is a kind of new kind of self-confidence, right? I mean, the country there, when they approach particularly international forum.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I think there is a new sense of clarity. And frankly, I think it sort of resonates amongst the people as well. And you saw that, Anil, in the way we handled the pandemic. All other large federal democracies, whether it was the US, much, much richer than us, whether it is Brazil, which is also federal, large, and fairly heterogeneous, they all struggle on account of the fact that, the science was not always clear. The leaders were very populist. There was a lot of, pushback from people, lots of demonstrations. Of course, the leaders also said sometimes completely unscientific sort of, populist. You didn't have any of that drama unfold in India. And I think it is on account of the fact that when the leadership is so clear in what it is trying to achieve and clear in the messaging of it, I think it resonated. Despite the difficulties of lockdown, etc., people resonated. You are seeing that across quintile groups, we faced almost no resistance when it came to vaccines, when it came to just, adhering to protocols. And subsequently, the reopening and the way the economy has sprung back. There is an optimism even internally. The optimism is not just external. People are moving on in a positive direction.
Shamika, I just, to wrap up this segment, that, like I said right at the beginning, there have often been this big expectations from the rest of the world that India's moment has come. The 2003-4, we saw that subsequently too. But India has always failed to match that potential. Do you believe that this time everything is coming together and it would indeed play out in India's favor?
I think politically, there is a great deal more stability, right? You are seeing this in the different state elections, the way people have also responded to one thing. The other, fundamentally, I think what is different this time around from, I know what you're alluding to is the India Shining Post example, is that the growth strategy is a bit different right now. We are not just reforming for the sake of growing. The whole reformation process, or the way we have gone about, is making amenities universal, meaning the belief that, you know what, basic amenities like electricity, water, toilets, connectivity, we are going to make it available to everyone, everywhere. And I think that in itself has long-term massive productivity gains that stem from it. And we are seeing that. We are seeing the impact of this early investment into different kinds of infrastructure, which the Prime Minister often says universalization. You are seeing the impact of that, whether it is, you can consider it, these are large fiscal, big outlays, and we're spending on infrastructure. The capex is rising. 3 years in a row, we have spent a great deal on. But that is when you look at fiscal numbers in a very sterile public finance kind of a way. When you look at it from welfare perspective, then you realize that, there are many segments of the Indian economy which have amenities available for the first time. And all of that is, of course, leading to improvements. And as we have seen in other economies, when at such large scale amenities have gotten made available, you are seeing long-term gains in labor productivity and overall productivity in the economy.
The big picture on India is clearly impressive. But how does it look at the state level? Will the sum of the parts be greater than the whole, or will political polarization be the dampener?
I think, Anil, India should be viewed as 28, 29 vibrant economies, which are, of course, part of the overall Indian economy, but each of them have their own different facets. They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. I think state finances, and now I have started to look at state finances closely. I'm seeing some areas which concern me, and some which actually I was positively surprised at. I started looking at just the development to the non-development, like what kind of development spending the states are doing and how has it changed over time. And it's very clear that some states are super innovative. Some states have managed to keep their development spending, three-folds or more than three-folds of their overall non-development spending. But these are also states that have actively brought down the debt burden, the kind of servicing interest and debt servicing that they do, that burden has been brought down. They have been able to manage their the pensions after the reforms. They have stuck to the new pension regime, which gives them the long-term fiscal stability required to basically spend money on development, which is the only thing which will go towards long-term growth. But some states are concerning, and that is where you are seeing that non-developmental spending going towards pension and interest, debt servicing, are unsustainable right now. And clearly, where is that money going to come from? I know the trade-off is development. And that is why I say that, a relatively smaller group of well-coordinated and well-organized government employees can sometimes, push states into pulling back on what are very long-run, very progressive reforms we have had. So I think this, needs to be now discussed openly. The other, I think, are the state, the efficiency of the capital spending itself. Some states are just spending on long-term growth. Some states are not showing any major increase. Some have, in fact, even shown decline in the long-term capital outlay. So you're right that the heavy lifting now has to be done by the states.
Shamika confirms that not all states are performing to potential. Worse, in some instances, development is being sacrificed for the politics of power. This is not sustainable. Is it time then for India's political parties to evolve a common minimum program that is sanitized from politics?
I think, through the Finance Commission, we do have bodies, by the way. We don't need external agencies to be able to foster, something like that onto us. I think we already have the institutions within the country, within the federal structure, where we have that common ground to be able to discuss and agree upon. But I think that conversation is required because, we do have, it's a federal country and states go into elections and, the electoral compulsions mean rolling back on hard-earned reforms. So I think, we will have to, within our institutional and constitutional framework, have some of these difficult conversations. But I think the time is now.
You heard Shamika. If India is to realize the potential that the rest of the world sees in it, then it has to collectively talk tough on reforms, which means the center and the states have to collectively come together and do the heavy lifting that the reforms require. The rollout of the goods and services tax, which propounded the idea of one nation, one tax, proved that this is possible, despite the deep political divide. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Strat News Global on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any updates. And please do share your thoughts, ideas and suggestions with us. I'm available on Twitter at Capital Calculus. I'll be back next week with another episode. Till then, stay safe.